Welcome to Game Savers Podcast, your next-gen gaming podcast for news, reviews, previews, impressions, analyses, and roundtable discussions involving past, present, and future games. My name is Tony Morris, and today I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Wayne, and I love video games.
And we're also joined by newest member of the Game Savers family, John Connor, coming in from Belfast, Ireland.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, thanks for coming on, John. Appreciate it. So we've got a packed episode today. We're actually doing our 2020 Game of the Year Awards. As shitty of a year as it's been, this is going to be something good and positive. It can hopefully influence some of your buying decisions this year, even if you're playing stuff and you're just listening for fun. Either way, hope you enjoy the show. As a reminder, some of the upcoming episodes we have coming out here in the next few weeks are going to be revolving around some other items. We got the retro analyses episode coming up before the end of December, the Call of Duty Modern Warfare versus Black Ops episode for Cold War. And then we've also got the 2021 gaming wish list episode for what we want to see in 2021. So stay tuned for all those. Those are coming up soon. But again, today is the 2020 Game of the Year Awards. Holy shit, gentlemen, can you believe we've made it this far in 2020?
Where do you even start talking about 2020? You know,
It's been the longest, shortest year.
yeah, it's simultaneously dragged in and flown in. It's been a very confusing year, definitely.
I didn't even think we'd live long enough to see this point in the year where we could actually look back and reflect on what good games have come out and what games we're going to actually release. If you took us back like 11, 12 months ago to January of this time last year, right, where life was good, there was no COVID. We knew we were getting new consoles and things like that pretty much at the time. But around February and March, the way things were going, you would have never guessed in a million years we would have had such a great year for games with the consoles that came out. Even if everybody didn't get an opportunity to get their hands on them, all the great games that have come out. So now we just get to take a moment and reflect on that. So what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to me personally, video games is one of those things that kind of helped me get through the year. You know, with not being able to go out to things that I'm usually into, like, you know, gigs and concerts and cinema and all that, you know, just sitting home, kicking back, putting on the Xbox or the PlayStation and playing some games, you know, big, important part of the year for me. I have to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. When there's nothing else to do. And John, I know you're new to the Game Savers family. Why don't you tell us and the people at home a little bit about yourself and, you know, maybe a little bit too about what got you into gaming.
Yeah, so actually, I am a game developer in Belfast, and it's something I actually got into this year because like I spent a lot of downtime this year playing a lot of games and stuff. And the opportunity to go into the games industry appeared, and I took that chance. So it's a very recent thing, but for the last 6 months or so, I've been developing video games.
Cool.
That's where I got into video games. I have no idea because I just always played them. Someone's like, "What's the first game you played?" I have I don't have a clue. I think the first console was a Super Nintendo or Genesis. One of those two. I had both available. So
you were just born with a controller in your hands, and it was on from there.
Yeah, there's like a photograph of me like in a high chair, like wearing a bib. I was that age, so I was like 7 or 8, and I was using a flight stick on a PC.
Do you still play inverted if you're using a flight stick? That is the question.
I haven't used a flight stick in years.
No shame.
Back then. But actually, funny enough, I remember quite a funny story last night where like I saw a picture of like one of the Dreamcast booths that like you'd find in like a video game store, and I remembered last night, for some reason I blocked it out, that like whenever I was about 11, like I just had one of those because I think I went to the game store with my mum, and they were like taking down the display stand with the Dreamcast in it, and they were like, "Wait, what do I do with that?" And they went throwing it out, and they ended up giving us like one of the like, display kiosks. So we just kept it at my mum's work. So when I went to visit my mum at work, I just had this Dreamcast inside. But like that's just the level of like insane relationship I've had with games in my life.
That's
where,
a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it was the thing that happened, and it's one of those looking back. I was like, how did I forget about that? And I had to like check it and go, "Well, that was definitely real, wasn't it?" And she was like, "Yeah, of course it was real." Like, cool.
How does that not look like theft? How does that not look like you stole a Dreamcast from a video game store?
I don't know. It was even in the case, and they gave us the TV and everything too. It's not like we took the Dreamcast out of the case. It was still in the display stand.
Oh my God.
Really
That's
cool.
fantastic. But thanks for being on here today, John. And you know, you've always got Tall Tony here and Big Wayne in the house, but Let's talk about 2020. I mean, we got a lot of good things and a lot of bad things this year as far as gaming goes. We got some new consoles. Granted, they were kind of hard to get. I ended up being lucky enough to get both. Wayne, I know you've got your hands on the Xbox Series X. John, did you end up with anything as far as new consoles?
I ended up getting a PlayStation 4 about 2 days ago because I
PlayStation
happened to be
4?
awake at 6 a.m. 4,
PS5.
5.
I was like, wow,
So
you had to wake up early to get a PlayStation 4. I didn't know those were still in high demand. That's
I had a bad deal on eBay.
nice.
PlayStation
Holy cow.
5, yeah.
Well, congratulations. So you're able to land one over there in the UK. I know here in the US we're dry. That's it. There's no more. I give up. Luckily I've got both, so it's not too big of a problem. But
Yeah, but when I was collecting from the store, I felt every eye on me walking out of that building. Like it was just a certain age group of people. As soon as you walk past with a PlayStation 5 box in your hand, I was going, I need to lock this in the car real fast.
you feel like you need armed security to get out of that mall.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But we've got the Game of the Year awards today. We could just dive right into this. Let's do some disclaimers, shall we? We'll just go around the room here and take care of this and get the ground rules out of the way. But before we start handing out trophies, medals, and I don't even know if we're actually going to send anything to these poor developers. Probably not. But we will be giving some shout outs along the way. So one thing first, Cyberpunk 2077, mad hype train. It's technically coming out in 2020. But it's coming out December 10th, 2020. We're not going to have enough time to play this bad boy by the time this episode airs. Obviously, we're all going to be playing it a few days from now, but unfortunately, just won't have enough play time to make a decision on it. So I think it's a pretty general consensus in the gaming industry at this point that game is going to be pushed off into 2021 for eligibility. Wayne, any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it has to be that way. Even if people were able to get the first 20 hours played or something, and then I don't know about you, but I think it's a wee bit disingenuous to come out and say that this is my favorite game of the year if you haven't finished it.
I've logged 4 hours into the game. This is my game of the year.
Yeah. And there's lots of games I've enjoyed the first 4 hours and not like the rest of it, or vice versa. One of my favorite games, Fallout 3. It was 7 hours into the game before it really clicked with me. So yeah, in a nutshell, you really need to be hands-on with the game, fully hands-on with the game before you can say whether it deserves an award or any sort of, this is the best in this category or whatever.
Absolutely. So going down the list for that as well. So the formatting of how we're going to do this episode today, we're going to go ahead and I'll list off the categories here in just a moment and tell you what we're going to be handing out these awards for. But what we're going to do after we name these awards, one thing to note is that we don't actually know each other's picks. I have no idea what the hell Wayne's going to pick. I have no idea what the hell John's going to pick and vice versa. So with that, what's going to happen is we'll list the category. We'll each take a moment and pick our own. We don't have one unified response because we'd all probably battle to the death on trying to pick one over each other for which one would get like overall game of the year or, I don't know, best character, whatever it may be. Because there's differences of opinion there, which is a great thing. So we're all just going to do our own and go from there. So let me name off the categories real quick. Actually, before I do that, sorry. One other thing to note, one last thing is that we are opening this up to remasters, remakes, anything that was, let's say, an early access release that maybe technically the game released 2 years ago, but it got its full release this year on Steam. If you follow that. So those are all going to be included for this year as well. But, generally everything is pretty much 2020 to whatever extent that might be. So any last words here, Wayne, before I start listing off the categories and then we dive into it?
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that these are just our opinions and they're based on what we have played this year. I mean, I haven't played every single game. There's a bunch of games I know of that are highly regarded games, stuff like Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man Miles Morales, the Final Fantasy VII remake, Half-Life Alyx. There are a bunch of games that I'm sure I would enjoy and would probably be within my list had I played them. But none of us have the time to play all the games. So take these opinions with a pinch of salt. It's just our thoughts. It's just what we enjoyed this year. You don't need to go crazy and argue and fight us unless you want
to. Blow up Wayne's Twitter, please. That's what I'm asking everybody to do. And anything for you, John?
No, I mean, I think it's the same thing. There's definitely there's a couple of games where in my head I was going does that go on the list? But as I said, I only got a PlayStation 5 recently, so there's things like Demon's Souls where it's I don't want to make a judgment on it because it's so new and it's got that if you've been playing it for 2 days, it's fresh in your head, you might rate it. So I think some of the
Right.
choices might be a little conservative, but yeah. And then sometimes I had to think like, what was my favorite game of the year versus what I think was the best game of the year, because they're definitely not the same things
Right,
in
right.
some of
And
these categories. But yeah, I think we'll cover that when we come to it.
perfect. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat as both of you. I've had a chance to also play most games that have come out this year, at least the most well-known ones. There are some that just slipped into my backlog because, like you said, time. We're only human. There's only 24 hours in a day, and let's face it, I'm not sleeping for 8 hours of it as much as I'd like to. So that's just how it is. But let's just dive right into this bad boy. Let's start naming out these categories. I'll list them off real quick, and then we'll start our way down. So the first one here is going to be the overall game of the year award for 2020. We'll actually save that for last. We'll change up the order here a little bit from what you're seeing on the screen, but so we've got overall game of the year award for 2020. We've got best story, best Nintendo exclusive, best Xbox exclusive, best PlayStation exclusive, best PC game, best character, best soundtrack, best multiplayer, best visuals and graphics, best action game, best strategy, best adventure / RPG, best platformer, best horror, best indie, best VR virtual reality, best sports game, best fighting game, best racing game, best shooter game, and best battle royale game. Maybe some bonuses here at the end, but that is all the categories we have today, ladies and gentlemen. 22 categories. So without further ado, maybe let's just dive right into this bad boy and we'll move this around and work our way up here. Best Nintendo exclusive. I know, Wayne, you don't have a pick here, but I guess this one will come down to me and John. So best Nintendo exclusive for the year for you, John. Feel free to take it away.
I'm gonna have to go with Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity for this one.
Okay.
I had a couple on the runner-up list. So like I was thinking, like Mario 3D All Stars, obviously killer release, fantastic package, but it is just a re-release. If it had done more with the games, maybe that would have been higher. But when it was the original games again, didn't do quite as much. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is also fantastic game, came out this year in January, so 4 years ago, but still 2020.
Right.
And Animal Crossing definitely like had to be mentioned. But in terms of like the most enjoyment I've had out of a game and like the most gameplay, like it has to go for Hyrule Warriors. Like Hyrule Warriors 1 was my most played game in the Wii U. So I played
Nice.
a load of that in Switch as well. So
Are you a fan of Dynasty Warriors as well then?
it's my favorite franchise.
All right, perfect. Hey, all right. That's golden to hear because I don't see a lot of other Warriors fans out there, and I can say I also very much hold the Dynasty Warriors series very near and dear to my heart. But what did you like about the game as far as Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity? Because that's in the Zelda universe, correct?
Yeah, I mean they did really cool stuff. Like obviously they've got the Dynasty Warriors Lived It, which I love to begin with. But then like the way it ties into like a lot of stuff in Breath of the Wild, bringing in the characters and art style, like Breath of the Wild is, already like one of the greatest games ever made. And they converted it so well. And like part of playing it, you're like, this is a fun game to play. Like the gameplay looks really fun, but then you've also got like loads of little nods to Breath of the Wild. Like the fact that like shield surfing is just a standard attack in this game, and you can just like throw out a paraglider, drop bombs from it, and like I think like in terms of even in the Warriors franchise, they've probably done more with this than any other one in recent history, where like everyone's got their four slate abilities, and they're for the most part completely different for each character. And I didn't expect it. I thought there'd be like a flat ability everybody used. So like there's a lot of like love and care in this game. Like
Yeah.
it's more they kind of did more with it than I expected. Like I would have been happy if they just did a pal swap for the first one. But they
Yeah,
went above
it's.
beyond expectations.
I thought it was a great upgrade over the first Warriors entry in that series, but again, that was a great game. I'll say for my Nintendo exclusive game of the year pick, Animal Crossing: New Horizons. I know you mentioned it on your runner-ups. Absolutely loved this game. It's one of those little charmers. It might be harder to get into if you're not, a mega fan of that series, which some aren't, which is okay. I was playing this all the way back in the day on the original GameCube. Played some Wild World, things like that, and have just been a huge fan of this series. I thought that game nailed a lot of things this year. As far as like the community aspect of it on Reddit, I found myself waking up in real life every Sunday before noon to get out there and this is no lie, to try to get out there and sell my turnips from Daisy. just to go collect those, sell them throughout the week when the Nooks are buying them for different prices, so I can eventually get more stuff for my island, build more things, et cetera, et cetera. But Animal Crossing New Horizons for me, absolutely loved it on the Nintendo. My runners up for that were Super Mario 3D All Stars. Again, just a repackage, no crazy good upgrades or anything like that to it, at least at launch. Paper Mario, the Origami King, and then Pikmin 3 Deluxe. So those came up to my runner-ups, but that's all we got for the Nintendo exclusive. Let's move on to Xbox. So best Xbox exclusive. Now, there's not a lot of them here, so it's slim pickings. If you're following closely, that's not a knock on Xbox. That's just how it is this year. But Wayne, maybe we can start with you on that.
Yeah. As you say, you've alluded to this already. There's not a lot of moves. Jesus Christ. There's not a lot of games exclusives for Xbox. A lot of the games that come out on Xbox come out on PC as well, and so that kind of makes it hard to choose one. But to me, one of the games from Xbox Studios that came out this year that was, I thought, absolutely phenomenal was Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Ooh.
Art style, completely fantastic. Gameplay, just really, really, really good. Challenging but fair. A nice little story within it. Good difficulty curve. It just gets a little bit more difficult as the game goes on. Definitely, it's not a. It doesn't look like a AAA game. I mean, whenever you look at that, it doesn't look like Uncharted or Bloodborne or any of these, these big hitters.
Right.
But I think in a way, it's just as good and it's just as worthy of your time. I would highly recommend it. It is available on Switch, which, as I say, it's not quite an exclusive, but it's Xbox Game
cheating,
Studios.
Wayne. The rules.
I
the
am,
rules.
I am cheating, but it's an Xbox Studios game, and it's definitely worth your time. So that would be my Xbox Game of the Year 2020.
And that's a follow-up sequel to the first one, right? Now, are both of these available on Game Pass, I believe?
They are, yeah.
At the moment. So if you're listening in December of 2020 right now, you can get both of the Ori series there on Game Pass for free if you're subscribed. So get out there, do that. Wayne says it's worth your time. Listen to Wayne. Believe in Wayne. John, what about you for best Xbox exclusive?
So I also chose Ori with the Will of the Wisps with the asterisk of yes, it is on Switch because people. I mentioned that, but at the point I played it, it was an Xbox exclusive, so that's going to be my little twist. But the other ones I want to mention that category would be Gears Tactics. It's like an XCOM like in the Gears universe, which is way better than it had any right to be. And then also Grounded came out like an early access this year. But
yeah.
So like I think whenever I played that, like it was still very, very early, but had lots of potential. But in the category where there's 3 contenders, I think it's definitely in the top 3.
Perfect. All right. Well, good to know. I'll say mine out there actually is Grounded for best Xbox exclusive of the year. I know again it was slim pickings. My runners up for that were Gears Tactics from the Gears of War universe, and then Ori and the Will of the Wisp for me was a runner up. I loved the game. But man, not that it was bad or anything like that. I just really enjoyed Grounded, and I know it also came out on PC because Xbox games, now there's not so much a thing as a core exclusive. It comes out on the console itself and then the PC, or vice versa. But I had a great time in Grounded as well. It gives me those Honey, I Shrunk the Kids vibes. From that way old school movie where everything is a lot smaller and the world's a lot bigger. So in that aspect, I thought it was really neat. Did some cool things with what you would expect to see if you were basically just shrunk to the size of an ant and had to walk around your house and survive. So cool game, like you said, a lot of potential. I'll be excited to see where that goes in the future. It's still got a strong community around it, even here at the tail end of 2020 on Steam and on Xbox. So will be interesting to see where that game goes. And it's got great multiplayer too. So that's always a plus, right? We'll go on to best PlayStation exclusive of the year. So obviously we've got the PlayStation 4 out. We've got the PlayStation 5. We'll go ahead and dive into this for John. PlayStation exclusive of the year.
PlayStation exclusive of the year, I went for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm a huge fan of the Final Fantasy franchise. And I mean, people had high expectations for the remake. Some people were disappointed, but for me, it's what I wanted. If there had been like a straight 1-to-1 remake of the original, I think I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. But I enjoyed seeing like the changes, and it like left me at a point where like I'm really excited to see where they go next with Final Fantasy VII, which is a weird sentence to say. like what is next Fantasy VII? And in the runner-up, Ghost of Tsushima, had a great time with that. Like the
Ooh.
world and everything's like a load of fun. And then also, this one's another bit of a caveat because it's Persona 5 Royal came out this year.
Right.
But obviously that's an expanded version of Persona 5, but it is also a completely, it's not DLC, it was a completely new release. But I
Right.
think when talking about like a PlayStation exclusive this year, then yeah, it's
You got to throw it out there.
Yeah, it's a really good game.
For Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah. I was going to say this category, like, again, I got a PlayStation 5 a few days ago. So, like, I think if I played a bit more Spider-Man Miles Morales, I'd probably have it on this list because I love the original Spider-Man. But just when I haven't had a chance to actually dig into it yet,
There we go.
I don't want to put it forward.
Wayne, what about you? Best PlayStation exclusive of the year?
I have already sung the praises of The Last of Us 2, so it is no surprise that that's my PlayStation exclusive best game of 2020.
Why?
Just it's everything I look for in a game. It's great story, great acting, great characters, good gameplay, an incredible world just to be in. Yeah, all of that, and just that sort of cinematic, narrative-based video game, and it's so well executed, and it is polished beyond pretty much any other game I've ever played. It is just so finely crafted that it couldn't not be my PlayStation exclusive of the year.
How about that? And were you one of those that was more, and you don't have to throw any spoilers out here, but were you one of those that was excited by the ending or disappointed by the ending? Because I know that was a mega split this year, probably more so on any other game.
I thought the ending was very, very well thought out and very, very well written. And not what just so uncliched, you know. I mean,
very non-traditional.
How many movies have we seen where it's I don't want to get into this, but revenge stories tend to have a sort of,
we know the ending,
a lot of cliches, and you know what's going to happen. And The Last of Us 2 just threw a spanner in the works and done something entirely different. At no point during that story did I know what was coming next, and to me that is a brilliant story. That is a brilliant way to tell a story. That's how a narrative should be. I think I said this in the last podcast. You know, there's a quote from a movie called Memento. I keep going back to this. The best thing about reading a book is not knowing what's coming next. And to me, that kind of helps sum up the story and the story arc of The Last of Us 2.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I'll list mine off here in just a second. I wanted to go back to you, John, for just a second, though. So when you were talking about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, what did you think about the combat changes in there? Because I know that's kind of split people some different ways. It may or may not be considered the biggest changes in the world, but definitely a huge graphics upgrade. You weren't kidding there. But what'd you think about that?
I didn't mind the changes. Like, I've been playing like a lot of JRPGs and stuff for years, and like the combat system and Final Fantasy VII is obviously a classic, but I think like even within the Final Fantasy universe, like the old turn-based combat system is gone, and it's not like it hasn't been there for nearly 20 years at this point. Like
Right.
They got rid of it with Final Fantasy 12, well, Final Fantasy 11, I suppose, with the MMO. They got rid of like the turn-based combat, so I didn't expect it to come back, but like there are Final Fantasy spin-offs like the Bravely Default franchise where like I can go there if I want the turn-based combat. But I thought
Right.
like it gave a new dimension to a lot of the boss fights. Like if things like fighting old bosses again, if it had just been the same, select your attack from a menu and choose the same weaknesses, it would have just been the same game with a better graphical upgrade. But having the different combat system, like it give an extra like scale to the enemies, it give an extra like depth to the encounter. Like whenever you had to like interact with environment and stuff to fight a boss, like it was something new and interesting. Whereas before, if they had kept it the exact same, it would have been the same gameplay loop. So I'm glad they changed it up. Like the original still exists if people want to play that.
Yeah, that's very true. I feel like in 2020 in general, or really just here in the recent generation, turn-based strategy games are really, really difficult to pull off. I think recently, we've only had some in the line of maybe Wargroove, if anyone's heard of that, XCOM, Gears Tactics. And when you think of turn-based games, they're just pretty far and few between right now. And I don't know if that's just because there's no appetite for it there. I'll say I love those, and I'll eat them up every single time they come out. But like you said, maybe they're just going to leave that to decide for other people to pick up elsewhere if they want it. So.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and throw out my best PlayStation exclusive, Last of Us 2, same as you, Wayne. Just an incredible game all the way around. When that game came out, just absolutely blew me away. Couldn't have come out at a better time too, right? Because we were just really starting up the hardcore quarantine, at least here in New York, and all that. So had nothing else to do besides dive into this game. And I thought it was such a massive improvement over the first one, which is already a pretty high bar to step up to. And I thought Sony delivered. So great job, Naughty Dog there, and just can't praise The Last of Us 2 enough. And you'll probably hear one or two more picks from that game from me in here. Best PC game. Wayne, I know you're abstaining here. I'll go ahead and throw mine out there real quick. I'm going to say Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios, the ones that made that fine masterpiece in the form of Divinity Original Sin 2, also on PC, and I believe now consoles. Just a great game. Baldur's Gate 3, huge hype train. A lot of things are being delivered there. If you want to see more about that game too, by the way, go check out our friends over there at Emerald Moon Adventures. I know we had Megan on the podcast recently. We'll probably have Cody on at some point in time, but again, just an absolutely great series. They're doing fun work over there, and I love that game. Definitely hits all those RPG elements that you would hope to see out of a hardcore PC game. My runner-up was Total War Troy. It's unfortunately an Epic exclusive right now, which tears me apart because that's probably one of my favorite franchises of all time. Like you were saying, John, with the Dynasty Warrior series, I feel the same way about the Total War series on PC, and to see, a huge franchise like that on PC go to be a one-store exclusive is just such a bummer. So I guess we'll see where the future of that franchise goes. But anyway, John, what was your favorite PC game this year?
So, Baldur's Gate is on my list of stuff I really want to play, but I'm avoiding it in early access because they're wiping saves. So I'm just going to wait until it's done. So like for my pick, I had to go with Half-Life Alyx because like to me that is like a generational leap. It's like the leap between like a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 feels like a bit lessened whenever you go from like anything to Half-Life Alyx right now. Like it's probably the most interactive game ever made.
Yeah, I mean, did you play it in VR mode too, or?
It's a VR exclusive, so it is.
Yep. So
it's just being in that environment where like you can like pick up a crate that's full of bottles and the bottles of water in it. You can pour the water. It's insane, the level of detail and interactivity, and like you can pick up a pen and draw on a window and things. Like
right.
It sounds like really mundane stuff I'm saying, but like whenever you're in VR, like it's just so immersive. Like you can touch, grab anything, and it's because it's a VR exclusive. Like the really immersive sense of scale and everything.
I mean, VR games incredible. In general are kind of limited. Not that they're bad, but there's not a lot you can really do with the controllers and interactivity at this point in time, right? Sure, there's some games where they nail it, but I think what you said, this game absolutely took it up a notch as far as what's going to be expected from VR going forward. Which is always. Do you think it quenched the thirst for maybe the Half-Life 3 fans out there that have been waiting for 18 million years at this point?
I think because it's a VR, it's not accessible enough to quench the thirst. I think it's probably upset a lot of Half-Life fans more than it's helped them.
Wayne's raising his hand, yes.
I am insanely jealous that just even you sitting talking about Half-Life Alyx, like it just sucks balls that I can't play the game, and it's so frustrating.
See, I wouldn't even consider myself a Half-Life. Like I played like Half-Life 2 and stuff, but I wouldn't say they're favorite games of mine. But like Half-Life Alyx is like the game this year. Like if I had like one game this year that had like that, oh wow! Like when it's Half-Life Alyx, it's like even like the starting areas. As soon as you look around, you go, oh wow! Like this is.
Let's dive into best character. I mean, we've got some other things. We're out of the Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, PC. Now this can kind of be open to anything here because we got about 10 or 15 more categories here. But best character of this year. This could be any game, any platform. Really no criteria there. We'll start with you,
John. So this is definitely a pick where like at one point I almost thought of putting this game as best story, but then I realized I didn't think the story was that great, but this character made it great. And
that's okay.
That is Kamala Khan in Avengers. Like that, I really enjoyed the Avengers campaign. Like despite all issues, like game has. Like it's the end game multiplayer stuff does not need to be there, but the campaign is so full of heart, and it's because of Kamala Khan. Like she's probably the one of the most interesting video game characters come out this year. Like obviously, like she's the Muslim origin, so it's rare to even find a video game character like that. But even like in terms of Marvel Comics, she's still a fairly new character. But like
Wow.
it's like she's like the main character in the game, so she's your entry into the world. So it's her meeting all these superheroes and be like, oh wow, like you're that person. So but it's like it's sort of like she's the conduit for the player. He's like, wow, that's Iron Man, you know. She gets to say that, you know. But her entire arc in that is like she comes from a family where like very protective of her parents and stuff, and it's like it's all part of the story arc for her. And she's got loads of character development between start and the end, and like just a really touching character. And then the runner up would be Jin Sakai from Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a lot of good characters in both of those games you just mentioned. Gosh, that's good to hear. That's a wild card I didn't see coming.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that you picked a character from a game that wasn't necessarily high up your list in terms of how good the game was. Because a lot of people will, when they're asked this question, they'll just go to their favorite game. And then pick a character from that, probably pick their favorite character from that. Whereas you've come at it from an angle to say that this character is so good, it elevated this game to become something better than it actually was. I guess it's a great choice, yeah.
Like I said, I was going to like, originally this was my choice for best story of the year. But when I actually thought about what did I like about the story, it was I liked Kamala Khan, and I liked her interaction, and I liked her arc. But that's not the story of the game. That is part of the story of the game. And I think like if anyone is a fan of Marvel, like that game's going to come down in price. Come on, it's not doing well. But it is like it's a great like 12 to 15 hour campaign. Like it's a lot of fun, and then you just turn it off and pretend the multiplayer doesn't exist. That's great.
Awesome. What about you, Wayne? Best character of the year for you out of all of them?
It's time for me to start waxing lyrical about The Last of Us 2 again, isn't it?
Oh.
I mean, despite what I just said about John's choice of picking a character from a game that wasn't necessarily your favorite game, for me, it's Abby from The Last of Us 2. Now, I know of at least 2 viewers who still haven't watched played The Last of Us 2, so I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but if they just had have continued the story of The Last of Us 1 in a similar vein with Ellie and Joel, I don't think it would have been particularly interesting. It still would have been a good game. I'm sure it still would have been a good story. But the way they introduced Abby and what they done with that character completely flips that narrative on its head. It flips the story on its head, and it turns it into something just entirely different. I think that's why it's so divisive and controversial within the Last of Us 2 fan base. And some people, for the reasons that I love it, some people absolutely hate what they've done with it, to the point that I actually watched a guy on YouTube who's getting t-shirts printed up called with "fuck Naughty Dog" on it. He's taking it so personally. But yeah, Abby, what Abby done for that game and that story to me was probably one of the most interesting things in any video game ever. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Superb.
All right, Wayne, I'm going to ask you to fight me here because my pick for best character of the year is actually not Ellie. It's actually Abby. I agree with you.
Oh, God.
So, and as soon as I heard you say it, I was like, God damn it, Wayne, son of a bitch. So reason for me over here now, mine's, it might kind of play into what you're saying. It might not, but for anybody out there that watches wrestling, at least for myself, I love a good heel. I don't think you can have a great hero without an absolutely horrendous villain. And that's just how those stories are. And to me, without giving too much away, Abby is just a fucking excellent villain. It's hard not to hate her. It's hard to like her. You're going to have mixed emotions throughout this game of love, hate, everything in between. But man, I fucking hated Abby. And I loved that. And the fact that a character can make me do that so well, and especially, you know, again, with those mixed emotions, how different aspects of that came in through the story of, you know, you hated them, you loved them, everything in between, and you learn some of the whys and reasonings and, you know, stuff behind it. Because again, this game does have some pretty big twists along the way. It's a huge campaign, just a wonderful story and some stuff you just wouldn't see coming from 10 miles away, especially in that sequence where, again, I'm not going to get into details here, but, you know, most of the game you play as the primary protagonist, and then you switch characters and you know, you learn a thing or two along the way in that journey, and you're just like, what the fuck. So to me, like you said, Abby, best character this year. I mean, just wow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's a Last of Us 3, and part of me almost thinks there doesn't need to be. You know, it's almost like the story has been told. But to be fair, I said that after the first one. I didn't actually want a second game, but it'll be interesting to see where they take it next.
What were you gonna say, John?
So the thing with Spence, I didn't play Last of Us 2 because like Naughty Dog games just don't resonate with me. I've never really like I'm finished first Last of Us,
Whoa.
but like you just don't click with me. I think like a lot of the appeal of it's like cutscenes and the mocap and things is just not personally to my tastes. But like I think from the discussions I've heard about Last of Us 2, like I'm kind of interested to check it out because it seems like it's a morally ambiguous, like gray zone protagonist, and I think in video games that doesn't happen. Like if you look at something like a Mass Effect game, you're either a saint or you're punching someone in the face for no reason. Like they don't really do gray zones well. Like it's not people. I think a lot of audiences for games keep saying we need something new, but as soon as like a protagonist has to be, I am a good guy or I am the worst person that's ever lived. And if you be like this person's a little bit shitty, but maybe hear them out a second, people don't know how to respond to that and just get a little angry.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, even the aesthetics of Abby was just so different. I mean, she was one of those ladies that just kind of had like that huge aesthetic where, you know, had a huge muscles, things like that, where it was like really eye catching and different. And you don't see that a lot. And, you know, I know that kind of riled some people up, which, you know, who really gives a shit? But I thought that was just, again, another sense of unique. It complements that heel or villain aspect, if you want to call it that. So again, just a win all the way around, from the looks to the character to the way they're implemented into the story. You know, their entire arc, just wow. Yeah, Abby. I'll go on forever if you don't stop me right here. But so moving on to best soundtrack. Now I know we've got a few rockers in the house in the form of, well, all of us. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see some picks here, but best soundtrack, let's go to you, John.
I want to say Hades.
Hades? What? No way. All right.
Yeah, it's like the music in Hades is like really, really creative. Like they kind of like a rocky soundtrack, and then they add like a loads of like other influences and instruments to it, and it's just like you're kicking ass in the game, and the music's like, you know, you're kicking ass, you know. Like a run-up for me in this category is also, I was going to say Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I honestly don't know myself how I feel about that, because again, it's a lot of remastered and redone versions of music I loved growing up. So I don't like, I'm here not going, this is great, but it's because I've got that familiarity for it. But in terms of like Hades, like setting the tone, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that game, as you're trying to escape the underworld, if you want to call it that, especially when you get into those huge sequences where you're just blasting away, it almost feels like you're playing Doom at times. And it just hits you with that heavy metal and, you know, that mix of old Greek music, some string music and things like that. It's a great blend.
Really creative use of like various instruments and the way like certain elements will come in and out depending, and then like whenever like the fights die down, it's like really organic switching in music, like to tell you that the fight's over. It's really a lot of thought was put into that soundtrack for a roguelike, you know. That's
very true. Very true. Wayne, what about you? Best soundtrack 2020?
Best soundtrack for me, it's running in the background. Tetris.
Tetris.
The soundtrack for that is so good. It's the only soundtrack from a video game that I have listened to this year outside of the video game. So when I'm sitting at work, I'll be like, "Hey Siri," I should do that because it does listen to me.
How about you not set off Siri right now? Good lord.
Yeah. And I put on the soundtrack for Tetris. There's 40 songs all there on there. It's by the same artist, and it's everything from trance to jazz to funk, disco, a little bit of EDM, and of the 40 songs, I like about 35 of them. I think it's really, really good stuff, and it's a real wide range of stuff. And it reminds me, there's all these little like weird plinky plonky sounds, and they are the sounds whenever you drop your tetronomes and they lock in and you get that plink ding ding, and it just reminds me of playing the game, and it puts a smile on my face. I think it's fantastic.
In my head, you're just listening to the Tetris thing on repeat for 40 songs.
I'll say for me, best soundtrack of the year. Man, coming in hot with Doom Eternal. Such a great soundtrack. I mean, you know what you're getting with Doom. It's loud, it's heavy metal, it's really punching you in the face every step of the way. But this is one of those few soundtracks I could just listen to all day long, even without there being a game to listen to. If I just had to pop it up on iTunes and listen to it while I'm working out or whatever the case may be. But again, I'm biased. I'm a fan of the heavy metal genre as it is, so that game just really clicked with me.
A couple of years ago, we were at the VGA Awards in LA, and there was a live heavy metal rendition of.
Oh, you were at that? Was that 2016?
It was 2016. Yep.
Oh
yep.
Man,
and that was outstanding. Really good. It's all on YouTube if you want to check it out.
Yeah, I've seen that. I think I was actually watching it at the time and remember thinking, "Damn, this kicks ass, brother." So that's cool. You were there for it. My runner-up in that category would have been Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now I'm not done with that game yet, just because it's probably going to take about 60 hours to complete. But again, man, love that old Viking music. Sometimes they hit it. I don't think they hit it as hard as Black Flag did with the sea shanties and things like that.
Not.
Yeah, but I thought there was a lot of missed potential there, but whatever, it's still good. So yeah, that was my runner-up. Best multiplayer so far this year. What a wide open category that is. Oh my God. I'll give you the honors first, John.
So this is where I'm first going to mention a game I'm going to mention quite a lot going forward, and that is Risk of Rain 2.
Risk of Rain 2 on PC. That came out, I believe, out of early access as a full release this year, correct?
Yep, it came out. Yep. I had to double check that this year because most people playing in early access, but I get to 1.0 release this year. And as soon as I realized that, I had to revise this list a few times because that is an amazing game. It's I think in a year where Hades came out and people are talking about roguelikes a lot, I feel like it kind of went under the radar more than it should have. But it's so much fun jumping in friends and just seeing how long you can last in that. It's got that Binding of Isaac loop of the power game. So playing that with a friend where you can sort of take your ability growth and synergies and mix it with complete other player synergy growth, and it's just you can get some crazy combos going.
And did you play the original, by the way, John?
I didn't like the original at all. I
Same.
never got into Risk of Rain 1, but I love Risk of Rain. Someone recommended Risk of Rain 2, and I clicked with it. I went back to the first one. I still can't. I just can't click with the first one, but the second, one of my favorite games ever made.
So this is a pretty radically different change, isn't it? Because that first one was really I guess you'd call it the roguelike, your traditional one back in the day where you were going side to side. It was almost a platformer, and just survive as long as you can. Really, really great game, but not technically impressive or anything. Whereas Risk of Rain 2, totally different, third person, open world-ish. I mean, just a complete 180 almost from the first game in some aspects.
Yeah, it was interesting to go back to the first game after playing the second one because you're picking up the same items and you're like, oh, I know how it works in 3D. How did they?
All right.
Well, in my head, I'm going, how did they make it work in 2D? But really, it's how did they make the 2D work in 3D? And there's just some of the stuff you're like, oh, that's really creative. They've made some really creative tweaks. So if someone's played the first one, goes into the second, they'll recognize the items and then be like, wait, so how does this work? As soon as you have to add the 3 dimensions to it. They did a really good job with it. Other ones I had in this category would be Phasmophobia. That's really interesting multiplayer game. It takes the Ghost Hunter idea, a team of people, because everyone's got their own roles. It's not like you're being pre-assigned a role. Everyone just sort of picks up a role. It's got that close contact communication, so you're speaking to people near you, which has a really interesting dynamic. And
that game has taken off this year, by the way, because that game only came out in September, I believe, on Steam. And holy crap, I mean, there's already 80, 90,000 reviews on there on the Steam store page. Now, I'll say I had a bad experience with that game personally, and I know it's getting just rave reviews, but my microphone, for whatever reason, does not work with it. I tried 3 different headsets. I tried this podcast mic. I've tried everything, and for whatever reason, the microphone's a pretty huge part of that game, and I know some others out there have had the same technical difficulties. I've tried reorganizing files, different downloads and things like that, where you got to do a lot of stuff on the back end to make things work. And just unfortunately nothing worked, and I was lucky enough to refund the game. But man, that's one I do want to come back to, is Phasmophobia.
Yeah, that was really interesting. But I think in terms of multiplayer experience, this year had Among Us as well, which was in this, but Among Us is a weird one because that came out 2 years ago. So
it really
it's
got
not
on this year,
game. So it's an interesting a couple of these categories. I was like, did I say Among Us here? But I it's not technically a 2020 game. So
if you ask any casual when Among Us come out, they will say 2020. So nobody will know better. Wayne, what about you? Best multiplayer?
Right. If you listen to the podcast, you'll know that multiplayer is not my jam. So it takes something a little bit different or a little bit special to get me playing video games with other people over the internet. And Fall Guys done that. Of course it did. I mean, yeah, it's casual. Yeah, it's incredibly silly, but it's so much fun and it put a big smile on my face. And we just, so many times during lockdown, you just crack open a few beers, pass the controller back and forward and have turns between you and just enjoy the silliness that is Fall Guys. So without a shadow of a doubt, Fall Guys is my multiplayer game of the year.
How about that? Okay. And yeah, we just had season 2 drop on us as well. We're still getting some trickled content in there for Fall Guys. So
yeah, whenever it first came out, I think I played it loads for about a month and a half or so, and then maybe drifted a bit, but I still dip into it now and again for a bit of silliness and a bit of fun.
How many crowns do you have, Wayne? Crowns is what you get from like competing in the game show in the game and basically winning among whatever it is, 50, 60 people, something like that. 55.
Embarrassingly, I've only got 3, and 2 of those came from leveling up, so I only ever came first.
I'm not laughing at you because you suck, but I'm laughing.
But it's to me, like, there's so many other games. I played PUBG. I think it was last night. I was messaging you about this. And games like that, if you suck at them, it's just a horrible experience. But with something like Fall Guys, it doesn't matter how rubbish you are. You fall off the edge, you have a laugh, you have a bit of a giggle, you kick up another game, and away you go again. It's just cheesy fun, and I loved it.
That's awesome. So Risk of Rain 2 from John and Fall Guys from Wayne for multiplayer. I'll say for me, this might be an obvious one here, but I got some good runner-ups too. So best multiplayer for me, just based on the amount of hours I've poured into it so far this year, Modern Warfare Warzone. Now, obviously, there's Call of Duty Modern Warfare itself, and then there's Warzone, which are 2 separate entities in the same game. Warzone is the Battle Royale version of Call of Duty, where 150 players drop onto a map in one big circle. That circle gradually gets smaller and smaller and smaller until the last team standing wins, and you're fighting to the death there. I thought this game implemented so many cool aspects into the multiplayer realm that we're going to see from a ton of games going forward in the future. I can just feel that. Whether it's the class creation of, your loadouts, the gulag, where if you die in this game, for those that aren't familiar with Modern Warfare Warzone, you've probably seen the memes at this point, but if you die in this game, squads are out there fighting, you go down, nobody picks you up, you're dead, whatever. You go into what's called the gulag, which is basically this Russian form of a prison where you're going to 1v1 another guy, maybe even the guy that, killed you or somebody that recently died. You're both going to square off at each other in there one-on-one with a random weapon. It's a really small, like almost locker room looking area where you really have no choice but to fight to the death. You can't run, you can't hide. And then if you win that battle, you come back, you parachute onto the map, the other person is dead forever, which is just such a cool redemption idea. Other things too with Warzone, they've done a great job trying to balance it out. The ability to have 150 people on a map and have it work seamlessly. You can go into every single building on that map, which is another groundbreaker. Sometimes we get these huge open worlds and big maps where you can go into a lot of the key places. Some you can, some you can't. But there's not a single door in this map you can't open. I mean, there's some, but in general, you can open every single building, every door. You name it. They've added things like a metro, a rail system. Again, I'll rave on and on here about Warzone, but huge package for this year. Can't say enough good things about it. Risk of Rain 2 is my runner-up. Overcooked 2 had some great DLC drop this year. The game itself didn't come out, but the DLC was good for it. And then Animal Crossing New Horizons was always a good time with friends. So
I can't believe Warzone didn't come on my multiplayer list. It's actually a game like, I think that and Animal Crossing are the 2 games this year. If I had to choose like game I played most with people I didn't think played games, it would be Warzone and Animal Crossing, the 2 polar opposites. But like the Warzone's definitely like really impressive. It's like Apex Legends started the kind of you can buy back a teammate thing, but like the gulag, the dynamics of that, the fact that you can win your 1v1 and then instantly come out and help a teammate. They could be in the same gunfight and you can just like parachute in with a pistol and change the dynamic. Like it's really really well designed.
You're not kidding. There are so many dynamics to that game, and I think you're going to see that up here in the next few weeks about the Call of Duty Modern Warfare versus Black Ops Cold War, which is or Cold War Black Ops, which is going to be really interesting. So stay tuned for that too, coming up here shortly. But next category, best visuals and graphics of the year. That's always a fun one. Obviously, we got some new consoles out this year. We've had some new graphics card stretch. You're just seeing this huge increase in graphics. Well, let's, I guess, start there. Wayne, you want to kick that one off? We'll change up the order here a little bit.
Yeah. Whenever you said about going for an award for the best visuals, the best graphics or the most photorealistic thing isn't what came to mind for me. It was kind of like, what was the most striking thing? What stood out, and what was the most, like, literally what was just the most enjoyable thing to look at? And for me, it was a game called The Tourist. It's spelled Tourist. It doesn't look like Minecraft, but everything's like a sort of blocky 3D pixely design.
Voxely.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's, yes, I looked it up. And it's got a really, really like shallow depth of field. So things even just a little bit in the foreground, a little bit in the background are like out of focus. And it just gives it this absolutely gorgeous look. It's really bright and colorful. The characters are quirky and fun looking. It's a sort of a run around puzzle. It's a little bit like an old point and click mashed up with like a modern sort of 3D platformer puzzle story based game. There's a lot in there, but it's so much fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I think I finished that in like 2 or 3 days. And I would highly recommend that. Yeah. The look of it, it's so nice looking. And I haven't played this now. I played it on the One X, but I noticed it's got a Series X update, so I might just download it again just to see how much nicer it looks.
The Tourist.
The
Noted.
Tourist.
All right. Yeah. John, what about you? Best graphics of the year?
Also, like I did not go for the best looking game. Like my best visuals of the year would be Half-Life Alyx. And that would be because it is just that immersive. It is like when I was thinking of visuals, it's like what gave me the wow factor when I was looking at something, and it was like being in a city with that scale and see like a strider walk overhead. Like it was lots of memorable moments just from that. Like obviously the game itself actually does look great too. It's like really well designed, really like graphically. It also does look very good. But like they push it over that edge. It's because it's the VR and it's immersive. Like it's got that wow factor. The runner-up for me would be Ori and the Will of the Wisps. That art style is absolutely gorgeous, painterly art style. Again, not pushing graphic intensity. Ghost of Tsushima was also that. Again, that game doesn't actually look that, like in terms of textures and models, it's not amazing, but the atmosphere they do with it, with the lighting and a lot of stuff, like they can like anything, you could just go into photo mode and like have a gorgeous landscape, and it's visually is really impressive. But again, it's not.
I haven't seen this, but a friend was telling me that you can actually drop it into black and white, and then put the sort of English subtitles on with Japanese dialogue. And it just gives that like really old authentic samurai movie type thing. And I've decided when I do play it, that's what I'm going for.
Oh, it's very cool. And there's a mode where you can get unlock this thing where you get more powerful, and when you do, like the bars of the screen come down and like the color fades out.
Yes, yep.
And it goes into full samurai movie camera angles, and it's like there's so many like really nice visual effects in that. The last one I've got here would be the one I'm going to say is visual. It's the game I've put least in that I'm going to mention today, but Demon Souls has to be mentioned. Like that is probably the best looking PS5 game at the minute. Like they do incredible things, and I believe like they're not even using ray tracing in it. It's just really good lighting baked in, which is insane. They put so much like Blue Point, or like they did the Shadow of the Colossus remake too, and like they do so much with visuals on like even the PS4 and now PS5 hardware. That's, I don't know how they do it.
I'll dive in and piggyback on that, because my actual best visuals graphics game of the year. When I think of that, I think of a game that's making me stop every 10 feet and turning on the goddamn photo mode. Especially on PlayStation, where you click the 2 sticks, you go out, you're in photo mode. Hey, let's take a look around, do some zoom ups. do some screenshots and things like that. But like you said, John, for me, Demon Souls on the PlayStation 5. I'm only about 30 hours into this game right now, which probably for somebody that's actually good at the game is almost beating it. But for me, having died a million times, I'm probably not that far into it. I think it's like 8% of the game or something like that is what my play counter says. But just incredible graphics. I mean, you go into this world. It's super dark, which is kind of puts me off. I'm one of those that typically goes for like the brighter color gamuts, like a Breath of the Wild style game, right, where it's just super bright and cartoony. But man, just blew me away. The first time I saw a dragon come down and breathe fire on a bridge, I was like, holy shit, I don't think I've ever seen graphics like this before. Which is crazy to think about, being on every console, the PC. Demon Souls on the PS5 is truly the next gen graphics that you're looking for. And Ghost of Tsushima for me was just such a close runner up. Because that game, like you said, so many cool art styles within it. The way it switches up the different modes, especially when you're about to go beast mode on some other ones. I mean, you could just walk around in that game and turn on the photo mode at any given point, and it's fantastic. There's not a single bad angle in Ghost of Tsushima. So that's a really, really, really close second place for me. And if Demon Souls didn't come out this year on the PlayStation 5 and had the next gen advantage, then Ghost of Tsushima would have totally took it from me. So, but that's visuals and graphics. Best action game. Fire away there, John.
So this, I thought was a really tough category. I don't know why I find this so difficult. For me, I put Risk of Rain 2 as best action.
Okay, fair.
And again, this is a category I probably was the most conflicted about, because like part of me goes like, well, would it be Demon Souls instead? Because Demon Souls is obviously a lot more technical, and like, so when it comes to action, like, do you want the technical feel, or do you want a game how does it make me feel? And Risk of Rain, I feel like a god when I get powerful, and I enjoy that. That's what I want from an action game. Like, I've got Hyrule Warriors on this list as well for the same. I also put down Hades because like the action in that and the flow is incredible. And I also have Neo 2, which again, Demon Souls, really, really good combat and action systems. So this is the category where I personally, reading out those, I don't know what my clear winner is. I don't have a clear winner. I have a lot in that list where it's like all these games feel fantastic and the action, like they're really good action games, but they're all so good for so many different reasons.
I'll say mine then, because like you're saying, like that's a tough category to me because you get so much blend between action game, adventure RPG, fighting. All those sometimes tend to blend together in some way, shape, or form almost. And there's a really fine line between them. I'd say for me, Final Fantasy VII Remake, actually. Some are going to come up my throat and say it's a JRPG, goddammit. But yes, I know. Given the new combat style, I'm going to say it's an action game because...
It's an action game.
Yeah. I loved the game. Thought it was, really cool. It's not full on hack and slash, but the way they changed it up, I thought was with, the right amount of care, to where it just works on the modern systems. So, Final Fantasy VII Remake for me. What about you, Wayne?
Before I say the game, I just want to agree with you on that point. I think that video games are a wee bit like music these days, that, they all sort of incorporate different styles. I mean, there's no such thing as a pure action game anymore. They've all got skill trees and leveling up. Everything's got RPG elements nowadays. So all the different genres are kind of colliding and mashing together. This one, my favorite action game, I don't think I've played a whole lot of action games this year. I wouldn't call The Last of Us 2 an action game per se. So I'm a little bit reluctant to do this, but I'm going to give it the Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm not loving it. It's fine, but it's better than anything else I've played this year. So yeah, I will reluctantly give that one to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I confess I'm about the 40-hour mark at the minute. I haven't finished it, but I don't see it getting any better or any worse.
Would you have ever guessed 10 years ago with the Assassin's Creed series, just based on how stealthy it used to be, that we'd be sitting here in 2020 saying best action game?
Yeah, Creed. Absolutely. I would like to see them take it back a notch. I think it's time for them to return to their roots. I think they need to go back to something like around about the Brotherhood mark, and see what made that game so good, and then take those elements and try and modernize those for the next Assassin's Creed game, because it's just getting way too actiony. I mean, there's bits where I'm doing stealth, and I'm kind of like going around a little village, stealthy, and then I think to myself, it's going to take me 15 minutes to clear out this village. If I just go, fuck it and murder everyone, it's only going to take 5 minutes. So do it, and there's no, it doesn't reward you for being stealthy. It maybe gives you a tiny little bit more XP, but you might as well just run in and murder everyone,
Yeah.
And that's just not lending itself to being an Assassin's Creed game.
Just to add on to that, because I
So,
finished Assassin's Creed like last week, and like everything you're saying there's been a few categories in this. Looking down, I was like, should I say it? Assassin's Creed for this? But it's never made the cut. There's a couple I'm like, is that best? No, it's not.
That's an interesting take. I mean, I'm one of those, or I'm on the opposite side of the fence. I love the original games, but damn, I love the stance they've taken with, let's say, Origins, Odyssey, now Valhalla, and it opens up a lot of doors. I wouldn't mind seeing them go back to that traditional version of stealthy Brotherhood style gameplay.
I don't want to linger on Assassin's Creed for too long, but I think Odyssey and Origins was very, very satisfying to play them stealth, even though you didn't have to. And I think that's lost in Valhalla. Stealthy Viking just doesn't really work.
Right, you can't have a ninja Viking out there in Sweden.
I think for me, like, Assassin's Creed is a really good 40-hour game, but the problem is they're not 40 hours.
Nail on the head.
I got like halfway through Valhalla and I was going, I need to finish this. I got they do the PC subscription. I can pay £12 for the month, and I was like, I'm finishing this in a month. And about at the second half, I was just going, why does this keep going?
They
do
end. They outstay their welcome. They really do.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next category here, and I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit on these next ones because we've already been here about an hour and we still got like 10 categories left. Holy shit, gentlemen. But for the sake of the fine people at home, please put us on pause, take a drink, refresh yourself if you need to, and then come back. But other than that, we're going to dive right into this bad boy. I know, Wayne, you're going to abstain for this one because it's strategy, but best strategy game of 2020, my personal favorite category. So I'll just start off to this one. I'll say Wasteland 3 took it for me. Not so much a traditional strategy game, but love the original Wasteland game, Wasteland 2. A lot of it falls in that kind of Fallout-y universe. A lot of RPG elements to it too, but strategy for me, Wasteland 3 took it. Runners up were, and again, strategy tends to just, really be PC oriented for some reason, but Crusader Kings 3, Iron Harvest, the Age of Empires 3 remake, Gears Tactics, Wargroove had some updates this year. So those are my picks for best strategy. What do you got, John?
My best strategy was XCOM Chimera Squad, because I like the XCOM franchise, and like having a more character-driven one was like really interesting. They had a few things like breaching into rooms that just were a lot of fun to do, and like give a certain like bursting into a room and taking out half the enemies in the room before they even got a move was really satisfying.
Felt like Hotline Miami, didn't it?
Yeah. It was really fun. And then the runner-up is one that probably flew under a lot of radars, but Line Riser 1 and 2 on Nintendo Switch, PS4, and PC. It's if you like Fire Emblem. I was going to say it's a year without a Fire Emblem, but a new Fire Emblem released yesterday. So it's if you want another Fire Emblem, Line Riser is worth looking at.
All right, good to know. Next one, bringing Wayne back into the fold here. Best adventure / RPG, and again, like we were saying, a lot of crossovers there between what qualifies as adventure, RPG, action, all that fun stuff. But a best adventure RPG, Wayne, take it away.
Okay, is this the best adventure RPG of the year? Probably not. Is it the one I had the most fun with? Yes, definitely. And this might surprise you, Minecraft Dungeons.
And
it was as much the social aspect of it as anything. It was just getting online with a few friends and running about playing a silly game that didn't take much thought or much effort, and just bashing through the story. And again, I think this is a symptom of lockdown that we ended up playing this game. We couldn't go out, we couldn't see our friends. Let's play some games online. And I've got some sort of casual gamer friends, so this worked out perfectly.
How about that?
I had a lot of fun with it. I do think it's a bit a bit sly the way Microsoft put it on Game Pass, and we only got the base game, and you have to pay for all the DLC, which is like 80% of the game at the minute. But regardless of that, I had a lot of fun with it, and that would be my adventure RPG game of the year.
All right. How about that? What about you, John?
I think anyone expected Minecraft there. My best adventure RPG was Final Fantasy VII Remake. Again, like I spoke about it before, I really enjoyed that game. You put in the action category and put in the RPG category. I think that speaks to that game.
Yeah.
And its nature of, is it actually an RPG? And who cares? It's fun.
It's weaving the fine line.
Yeah, and then for the runners up, I mentioned Persona 5 Royal. It's a 1.5 kind of release. Like the base game was great. This is still great. And then Tokyo Mirage Stations flew kind of again under the radar in about January. That is Shin Megami Tensei Crossfire Emblem. So very, very like it's the closest you're going to get to a Persona game on Switch at the minute. It's by the same developers and everything.
Right.
It's a Persona Fire Emblem crossover. It's a lot of fun. And then Trials of Mana as well.
Oh,
the
there we
remake of the Super Nintendo game that came out this year. Like it's really cool and like lots of branching storylines you can go down.
Yeah, it's good to see some love for Persona 5 too, and that's one I know it's an I won't call it an older release, but just not a full 2020 release, where you like it gets that mega update and the Royal Edition and all that fun stuff, but like I'm just now getting into Persona 5 here kind of late in the game because JRPGs have just never been really my jazz. I get into like the Dragon Quest, the Final Fantasies, things like that, but I don't get too much deeper than that. And I'm finally doing Persona, and I'm just having a blast. And can't wait to sink 100+ hours into this game, man.
That could almost go in the visual category just for the style of the menus.
It really could. Yeah, you're not kidding. Best adventure RPG for me, this is going to be kind of a wild card here, and it crosses so many genres, but Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord on the PC. Man, that's another one of those games that just had a hype train that there was no tomorrow for. We waited just years for this, and it finally came out in early access, and it's been great on Steam. I think the launch was a little bit more rocky than most people wanted to see it, but really well received game from the Steam community on there. Basically, what you're doing is taking a warlord or whatever you want him to be, really at that point. Going from territory to territory, trying to raise an army, and then you're doing all that on a map, but you can actually fight the battles like either as the strategy maker or like as a soldier in person. Amongst like 10,000 people on the field, whatever the high cap is on that. But just a really cool game. If you haven't seen it on PC, if you're a console player that just doesn't get the opportunity to play these huge war strategy games, check it out. Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord. It's only on the PC, but goddamn, one of the better games I've played this year by far. Best platformer. That'll be a fun one. So usually a little bit more lighthearted in that category. Wayne, what do you got?
Again, a game I've already mentioned, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. It may not be a pure platformer like Mario or something like that, but there's definitely a lot of jumping about in platforms, and it's brilliant. So yep, that's mine.
There we go. What about you, John?
So this one's going to be completely out of left field, but Ghost Runner would be my best platformer.
Oh.
Because I was kind of wondering, is that going to be like an action category? Is that going to shooter category? But no, it is. It's a first-person platformer. But I think like any game I've played this year, it's got that like Super Meat Boy loop of like, I looked at the stats. I spent 20 minutes on a level and died 140 times in it. But like I'd have those moments where I'm like, okay, I'm done with this game. Go away, 20 minutes, and the next thing in my head is I need to go back. I need to beat that. Like I just couldn't. It got free real estate in my brain. Like for the week I played it, I was constantly thinking about going back to it.
When you're like, I'm never playing this game again, then you're back on the couch like 30 minutes later with the controller in hand. Like
one boss fight, I decided I'm never touching this game again. And like 20 minutes later, fine, 5 more goes down, go to bed.
The Hall of Shame.
Yeah. The runner-up for me then would be Ori Walden Wisps mentioned, but then also Astro's Playroom, which is a lot better than it could have been. Like
Astro's Playroom, yes, on the PS5. Oh my gosh.
That is a fantastic bundled in title. Like so far, that's what I've actually most time in on my PS5. It's a Nintendo level platformer. It's great.
That's great you said that, because I think when we did our when we did the PS5 Xbox Series X impressions episode here about a month ago when the new titles came out, That was one that came out, and I was just not expecting it to be as mind blowing as it was. It's a free game. It comes with a PS5, Astro's Playroom, and it's just an amazing platformer. By all stretches of the imagination, I didn't think a character like that would resonate with me as well as some of your more traditional platforming characters, which there's a million out there I won't name, but yeah, Astro's Playroom. You're not kidding. It's a great game for platforming.
John, did you play the previous one, Astrobot Rescue Mission?
Did not.
I have a PSVR.
If you get an opportunity, do go back and play that. It's a fantastic game.
That's awesome.
Best platformer for me, non-traditional here, but I would have given this to Super Mario 3D All-Stars, but goddamn it, Nintendo, you just had to package it so terribly. I couldn't, in good conscience, give this the best platformer, like Mario always should have. But Crash Bandicoot 4, it's about time. So for me, that facility took it. They've got a new pass and play feature on there, which is great. Works really well. Me and my girlfriend can both play it. She's addicted now, and she's not a gamer by any stretch of the imagination. Love her to death, but she actually has fun playing this game. So the fact that Crash Bandicoot 4 was able to, kind of rope in some casuals, so to speak, was a wonderful thing. So Crash Bandicoot 4, check it out. Best horror game, best spooky game, best scary game of the year. I'll just throw John into the loop here. Good luck, John. No.
So this is the category that I chose, where it's like, this is probably the game I like. If this was category was called game I hated most this year, it would be Phasmophobia, which is also the best horror game of the year. And the reason I'm saying that is because, like, I can play Resident Evil 3 and I'm like, this is fine. I could play Amnesia and, like, I would be a bit scared, but Phasmophobia is like, I'm done after a match. Like, I'm playing it and I'm just like, nope, can't deal with this. I'm going to stand outside this building and shine a flashlight in and not walk through that door because it's terrifying.
Oh my God.
So I think when it comes to best horror, that's the scariest game. So it's best horror.
There you go. Wayne.
For me, it is the Dark Pictures anthology, Little Hope. It's the second game in the Dark Pictures anthology by Supermassive Games.
Yeah, and they made Until Dawn, correct?
They made Until Dawn, yeah, which is kind of like their magnum opus. These games are a lot smaller, a lot shorter, but they're churning out more of them. Now, I've one problem with it, and that is that they've used the same twist in two games, and it's a bit of a cop out, and it leaves you feeling a bit, was there any point playing that? But during playing it, I did really enjoy it. Again, it's just good, enjoyable sort of interactive movie type games with some fun characters and decent acting, decent graphics. They're well-made games. They are well-made games. I just think they need to, going forward, they need to get a wee bit more original with where they're taking the stories and whatnot. But I still really enjoyed it. It's 4 to 5 hours of fun gaming, and really enjoyed it. And so that's my best horror game of the year.
Can't beat 4 to 5 hours. That's an easy play. Best horror game for me is going to be Amnesia Rebirth. Original Amnesia Dark Descent, absolutely terrifying. You know it if you played it on PC. I don't know if it's on console or not, but I played that through on PC. Same with Rebirth, and just absolutely terrifying. It's really rare for me that a horror series can hit that same level of fear in multiple games. You think of like Resident Evils, and we've talked about this before, but they just can't hit that same level of actual scary, spooky terror in every single game. They got to branch off, do something different. That or they try, and it just doesn't have that same element, right? Where it's like Outlast 1 and 2. But to me, Amnesia Rebirth was just equally as terrifying as the first one, which is already hard to do. Runners up for me were Resident Evil 3, the remake that came out this year, and then Phasmophobia, like you were saying, John, on PC. I fucking hate walking through some dark hallway and some abandoned home. Even though it's not like you're in a really too spooky of an environment on the outside. Because you could be in the middle of like a suburban neighborhood, with like other houses and people like 20 feet away from you. You're just still like, Jesus Christ, like I don't even want to go in this living room. I can see the neighbor's house from here, and I do not want to enter this living room. It's just that level of terrifying. So those are mine for horror. This is a good one, a great year for this category. Best indie game 2020. Let me see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Wayne.
No. Again, it's a game I've mentioned already. The Tourist. Definitely. I think it needs a bit more recognition. Game. Brilliant. So
perfect.
My indie game of the year.
What about you, John?
So I had Risk of Rain 2 down this category, then I realized Risk of Rain 2 is actually published by Gearbox. This was not indie. So I ended up
It's got that feel though, doesn't it?
It definitely, I think it's because the studio, like Risk of Rain 1 was an indie game, and like it's got that kind of like indie. I think it's because of roguelike. I think all roguelikes are indies. But
they're synonymous.
yeah, so second to roguelikes, I think Hades, which is an indie game, is like the polish in that, like rivals like a AAA studio would be jealous of it. Like it's so much fun to play. Like the feel of it's great, and it's just it's a fantastic game. And then my runner up for best indie would be One Step from Eden, which
Ooh, yes.
is, if anyone's ever played the Mega Man Battle Network games, they were some of my favorite Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance games, and they One Step from Eden is a roguelike version of that. So it's the same battle system but a roguelike. So I really enjoyed playing that.
Excellent. How about that? I'd say for me, best indie, I'm going to give that to Hades. I know technically it came out a couple years ago, but it had its full release this year. Just a great game. I mean, the art style, the soundtrack, stuff we've already talked about for Hades, but great game as far as the indie category. Would love to see a follow up to Hades from that studio at some point in the future. Fall Guys and Among Us, obviously huge success. Technically, Among Us a little bit further back, but Fall Guys hit us in the face out of nowhere. Among Us, indie games have just kind of shown us this year they can really compete and kind of take over the gaming community by storm when they want to, which is a crazy thing to think about. So props to indie this year. Best VR game. I mean, I don't think I don't think anybody's not going to pick Half-Life Alyx in this category, but John, I'll ask you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Half-Life Alyx got the win. There were a few runners up as well in this category.
Yep.
Until You Fall is worth checking out. It's basically VR Hades. It's a really fast paced and like it is a workout because like I was expecting it to be slower paced. Like a lot of VR games tend to kind of squeeze on you. You're blocking and attacking with swords, and some of the things you have to do in this, I was like, it is proper. Like I actually, I did fencing and I represented Northern Ireland at sword fighting. And playing this, it is like the same level of reflexes.
Oh my
like,
gosh!
Why do I have to dodge like parry so many attacks in a row? And then also Population 1 VR Battle Royale. It's really cool because obviously it's VR. It can do things other Battle Royale can't. It looks a bit terrible, but it's very immersive. And then also Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's especially for a licensed game. Like it's really it's been a great year for VR between all of these and Quest 2 coming out. Like I wish VR was kind of picking up more. I'm hoping that the Quest 2 could be like the one that makes it affordable and like in people's homes because like there's a lot of really cool things happening in the VR space and it's flying under the radar.
Yeah, good year for VR. You're not kidding. I mean, same for me. Half-Life Alyx. You just can't get around how great that game is. Gonna be interesting to see what 2021 holds for VR. But best sports game. Now I'm going to be honest. I had to do some cheating here, in the non-traditional sense that I've already been pissed off by EA with the handling of FIFA's, Madden's. I thought 2K probably had the most improvement, the basketball series, over any traditional sports game, which was a good thing to see, and it's still fun. But again, not any major improvements or additions to these games other than really being a graphics upgrade and then a roster change, which is really what sports games are doing now. So I'll take this one first. I'm just going to say it. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, the remaster, are absolutely amazing. That fucking soundtrack that I go on about all the time, incredible. The gameplay, the skating, again, it's extreme sports, but that's for me Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. John Wayne, I mean, take it away.
You said it already.
sorry if I left anybody speechless there. Shit.
Tony Hawk.
Sports, not normally my thing. I mean, I don't like FIFA. I don't like basketball, American football, any of that stuff. So I was going to abstain from this one. And then I remembered me and a few friends spent a heap of time playing golf with friends. And I mean, it's awful. It's actually not a good game. But again, it's fun. It's fun. It's called golf for your friends, and it's fun with your friends. And it's that social experience, and it's being in lockdown and just having a bit of a laugh. There's some really, really stupid modes that you can put on. Like it is golf, but you can change the golf ball to a puck, which just completely screws things up. And it's more of crazy golf than actual golf. So you've got all these mad, wacky, zany golf courses with, you know, conveyor belts and all sorts of madness. And we had a good laugh with that. So yeah, I guess I don't know if crazy golf's considered a sport, but that would be my sports game of the year.
Go sports. What about John?
I don't know if it'll convince any listeners, but I've just looked up that game and seen that sounds fun. So my choice was Tony Hawk as well. But just when you mentioned golf, What the Golf came out this year too. And
What the Golf? Yes, that is a very unique game.
Is that iOS?
Yeah, if you want to picture with golf with friends, I'm going to take it further in the weird golf category because apparently no one wants to play real golf anymore. So What the Golf is, I'm going to call it sport.
I did play that. That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah.
That's good to see some love for Tony Hawk, though. I mean, geez, I hope we get like the Wasteland, Undergrounds, 3 and 4, so many others that could be remastered in that series. But damn, they did such a good job with this one and just showed it all the love it deserved. I felt like I was like 8 years old playing the first one all over again. It was great. Best fighting game. Non-traditional from my end, because this was a year where this category would typically have things like, the Mortal Kombat, Soul Caliburs, Tekkens, Dead or Alive, and none of those are really present this year, outside of some brief updates. So for me, I got to go the non-traditional route and go with Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity. So Warriors game for me, fighting, hack and slash. That's going to make its way into the fighting category. But for me, that's what's getting it. So what about you, John?
If we were allowed to break the rules, if I knew you could put Hyrule Warriors there, that would be my pick. But I actually just went for Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate because it's the re-release of Mortal Kombat 11 for the next gen systems, and like that is really fun. Like I'm not good at competitive fighting games. I don't play competitive fighting games, but the Mortal Kombat storyline is the right level of stupid that I really enjoy them. Like there's time travel involved, there's cloning, there's people getting turned into robot. Like it is so dumb. I really like that. So yeah, it's been a really quiet year for fighting games.
I guess I should mention, I forgot to say this, Smash Bros. Ultimate, the Fighter Pass. We keep getting some characters in there, which to me, Smash is the greatest fighting game of all time. Fight me, everyone. But Steve's Meat, the addition of that this year, you can't beat it. Min Min from ARMS was incredible. So excited to see what they keep bringing in 2021 for new Smash characters. But what about you, Wayne? Did you have a favorite in fighting?
I did indeed, yeah. And again, it was a game that wasn't necessarily a fantastic game, but it brought back a bit of couch co-op for me. So sitting at home on a Friday night, crack open a couple of beers, and play Battletoads. And it was
Battletoads
so fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think there was a really high expectation for Battletoads, and a lot of people were really, really disappointed by it. But I went into it with like low expectations, and I had a load of fun with it. It is a fighting game essentially, but like every other level is something different. So you'll have a fighting level, then you'll have like a racing level, then it's back to fighting, then there'll be a puzzly thing, back to fighting, then it'll be like there's a weird skateboardy level where you have to like jump from platform to platform on a skateboard. We had a blast with it. We had a load of fun, and it's only, again, it's a 4 to 5 hour game that you can just sort of blitz through, and it's another one ticked off the box and a bit of fun. So yeah, Battletoads definitely my fighting game of the year.
If you're able to beat 'em ups too, like Streets of Rage 4 is also really good.
That was on my list. That was going to be my winner, and then I remembered Battletoads, and it was like, no. I didn't finish Streets of Rage 4, but I did finish Battletoads, so I had to put that down as the winner.
Fair enough. A best racing game. Quick and easy for me. I mean, runner-up Dirt 5, but Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remake. Thought that was excellent. I mean, I did brightly see Criterion and all those studios go back to burnouts and things like that, because Need for Speed to me has just been beaten to death. But if I got to give it to one this year, it'll be Hot Pursuit. So diving back into this, John, what was your racing game of the year?
Oh yeah, so Trackmania, like the latest one, they released the base game free, so anyone can just jump in and check out the tracks. If you want to do the build and stuff, you can pay at that point. But I think like that's just a lot of fun. Like I really enjoy the Trackmania maps. It's something a bit different than traditional racer, going up the side of the walls, the loop and everything. But as someone who's not a big fan of like hardcore racing sims, like I really enjoy the arcade racers. And I also have my list here. This is the one game in the list I'm going to mention today that I have actually not played at all, but I think it should you mentioned, and that is Mario Kart Live Home Circuit.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
Because
Yes, a wild card.
just because I think like in terms of like if you had to point out a single racing game that like did something different this year, you can't get much more different than that.
Wayne's got some fighting words, it looks like.
it's one of those games that I think everyone just looked at it and went, "Wow, that looks amazing," but I have no room for it. I have no space for it, and it seems like a great idea, but just unfeasible for a lot of people, especially us in the UK where we have considerably smaller homes. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually don't know
Uh,
anyone that actually has bought that game.
no,
But I imagine
I don't either.
and the other thing with it is that to get the most out of it, you need to buy 2 carts, and that's 200 quid. Um, it ain't, and it's a steep entry point. It really is.
Very
Yeah,
much.
so the Mario Home Circuit, for those that don't know that are listening at home, it's the new Mario game that came out this year, where it's basically, I don't even know if you can even call this a genre, but it is a racing title where you have to set up the little checkpoints around your actual home in real life, and you can pretty much race things in augmented reality. So they're running over your kitchen floor, your fucking cats and dogs are chasing these things, beating the shit out of them, and everything in between. But I was just blown away by that release in the sense they didn't think to put out maybe Mario Kart 9 or invest time in that, because we haven't heard a peep on that, and it's been years since Mario Kart 8 came out. Maybe this is the future for Mario Kart, is the augmented reality.
No, please no. No.
No, please. Yeah, like you were saying too, I don't know anybody that's bought it. Just again for space. At least as a millennial, I don't have room for it. So, like that, I don't live in a huge home where that works out. So, interesting to see how that evolves. But best shooter of the year, I'll take this. Doom Eternal.
Hold on. You missed me on the best racer.
Oh, did I miss you? Shit, I'll go back. Hold on, edit that. God damn it, 2 things to edit now. So going back to Wayne for best racer of the year.
Kind of like what John touched on. I'm not a fan of these like really, really detailed racing simulators where you get to pick your car apart and change the suspension and the tires and blah blah blah. I just want to put my foot in the pedal and blast around a circuit a few times. So it's, for me, it's stuff like Burnout and Mario Kart and those fun racing games. One that I played this year was Hot Shot Racing, and it's a really very, very cool retro looking game. It actually looks a bit like I can't even remember the name of the game. There was an old racing game whenever like 3D graphics were just coming into like arcades and stuff.
Ridge Racer or something.
I think it was around that era. Yeah. And it looks a bit like that, and it's just so much fun. Very, very basic. It's easy to drift, it's easy to spin around corners, it's easy to build up boost and blast along the road. And if it's on Game Pass as well, so if you want to have a crack at it, it's not going to cost you anything. Highly recommend giving that a go. Good fun.
How about that? All right. So best shooter of the year. I'll start this bad boy off. I know we've already talked about this for soundtrack for yours truly, but Doom Eternal, also a Game Pass game. What gets better than Doom, right? Just shooting the living hell out of demons and getting in their face. A lot of good mixes of guns and firepower and things like that in this game.
Yep, I'm with you. Doom Eternal, even though I didn't finish it because it kicked my ass.
It's so tough.
Doom Eternal is my shooter of the year. I am always massively reluctant to drop down to an easier difficulty level. But I went on a few forums like Reddit and stuff, and a bunch of people were like, don't be afraid to play this in easy, because it is that hard. It really, really is tough. I mean, I got through Doom 2016. There was tough bits, don't get me wrong. I struggled with some of it, but I did finish it. Doom Eternal, no, I got to like the 3rd or 4th level, and I just got to a complete choke point where I was not progressing any further. So I will go back to it, but I need to drop it down to easier. But it's brilliant. It's just so good. So good.
Noted. What about you, John?
So Doom Eternal is also my choice, and I'm really glad we said with the difficulty, because I actually started that in hard mode because I read the description that I can handle this. About an hour later, I was like, how far am I through the game, and realized I hadn't beaten the first level yet. I was playing that much, so I dropped it down to medium and played it through medium. But so I think Doom Eternal was the top choice, and then for runner-up, I had like Call of Duty Warzone in that category for shooter, and then also I don't know how I missed this in VR or visuals, but Star Wars Squadron as well.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how I missed that in VR. That's an amazing VR game.
I'm
I-
sure. Oh my gosh.
I've got that and haven't played it yet
Oh.
because I'm waiting to buy a HOTAS to play it properly.
A flight stick?
Yeah, exactly.
How about that?
The first time I played it was in VR. Then I tried playing it on the screen, and I was like, I ruined it for myself. I have to be in VR playing this now.
Does it make you sick or anything? I mean, there's a lot of like tossing and rolling in that game. Like it's a wild one to play in VR, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I haven't played as much of it as I would like because it's the kind of game when I'm playing it, I'm having a lot of fun. So I'll sit for like an hour and play it straight. And then as soon as I take that headset off, I am lying down for about 30 minutes, just being like, oh, I feel so sick.
It was a physical out of body experience.
You don't realize it at the time because you're like, I'm really enjoying this, having fun. But as soon as you take a headset off, I was like, playing that too long.
That's awesome. Moving on to best battle royale, then we're gonna turn this up a notch here with our final categories for overall game of the year award and best story. But best battle royale game of the year, for me, Warzone, hands down. I mean, I do play Apex, I do play Fortnite, I do play PUBG, and some other smaller category battle royale games, but Warzone to me just can't beat it. And I'm glad they're keeping it going into 2021.
Does Fall Guys count as a battle royale?
Royale.
Not the traditional circle gets smaller and people fight to their death, but yeah, I mean, you could count it in that category if you want to be technical.
I'm going for that. Fall Guys, best battle royale game of the year.
Okay. What about you, John?
So my list, your two games made the runner-up slots. I had Fall Guys and Call of Duty Warzone. How do you mention those? They were both really good. I think like Fortnite's doing really impressive stuff this year, like with the whole Galactus event happened recently. It's amazing stuff they're doing. But if I had to pick like a battle royale that did something really new and unique this year, it's going to be Mario 35.
Whoa.
The 35-player Mario Battle Royale.
I did not see that coming.
I'm not overly familiar with it. I seen like a very, very short clip, and I feel a little bit embarrassed that I haven't looked into that. Tell us about it. I mean, how does that work?
35 Marios drop into World 1-1.
Right.
So basically, it's a bit like the Tetris 99 model. Like, I wonder if Nintendo's going to turn this into a franchise of popular game plus number. But like Tetris 99, obviously you're playing Tetris. The things you do affect 99 other players. But in Mario 35, you're playing through Mario. Things you do affect all the other people also playing Mario. So like you can send enemies to each other's screens. So if like you get targeted by a lot of players at once, and you suddenly have like 30 Koopas on your screen that you have to deal with. But it's like it's in traditional Mario levels. Like it's just like a really interesting. Like I wouldn't say like it's they're not the best Mario game out there, but in terms of like if you've got like nostalgia for like the original Mario when you're playing this, it's bizarre, it's weird, and like I couldn't see any other developer but Nintendo putting this thing out.
Is that free if you've got the Nintendo Online?
Yeah.
Right, I'm getting it.
Until March.
We're playing it tonight, boys.
March 1st, 2021, or is March 31st when Nintendo like delist all their games apparently.
Oh.
it's the Mario 35, same as Mario All-Stars.
Hold on a minute.
Limited.
Like what games? Oh, we could do a podcast about this. But what games would work as a battle royale that aren't battle royale? Because I'm thinking like, give me a 100-player F-Zero.
Oh God.
So a company I worked for recently made visual novels, and I kept pitching them, let's make a visual novel battle royale. Like 100 readers drop into your room. They must all read it.
I wouldn't mind seeing a Smash Bros 100 player. Now I know it already kicks it up to I think 8 is the cap, which is already pretty chaotic in its own sense. But I mean, Jesus Christ, that game has a lot of potential in that field. It'd probably be a giant clusterfuck if I'm being honest, and just wouldn't work at all. But dream big. Nintendo would find a way to make it work, I'd imagine.
Yeah, you wonder how they make a Mario Battle Royale and they manage. Like I've seen like fan Mario Battle Royales where it's like they've got 100 Marios on screen at the same time. But like the fact that they didn't go that route and they went a weirder route, you're going, okay, Nintendo. Like,
yeah. Well, we see you, Nintendo.
Yeah.
So we got. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Tony. Before you move on to Game of the Year, I think there was Best Puzzle Game of the Year.
Best puzzle. That's right. Yep.
That's right. Yep. And I think it's pretty obvious what I'm going for. It's not just the best puzzle game of this year, it's the best puzzle game of last year and the previous year, and every year it's the best puzzle game since puzzle games were invented.
Oh God,
it's Tetris. Of course it's Tetris, because it's the best
I'm
game.
not laughing
Because it's the best game ever made, and I will never stop talking about Tetris. I was even tempted. The tetranomes within Tetris, the
Yeah.
little different shape ones. Whenever you had a category for best character, I was so tempted to go for like the little four, the straight line tetranome.
Yep.
I was gonna go. That's my favorite character.
Go a step
But
further.
yeah, best puzzle game of the year, Tetris Effect. Absolutely brilliant. And I
Noted.
can't stop playing it. I'm playing it almost daily at the minute.
It is a very fun Zen game. I mean, you've got nothing to lose, folks. If you have Game Pass, go check out Tetris. It's just such a well done rendition of a classic game. I'll throw that in my hat for the ring too, as far as best puzzle game of the year for me. Tetris, hands down.
Awesome.
And I can't believe you talked me into getting it, but you did, and it's been a blast. I haven't sunk a ton of hours into it, but when I do play it, I enjoy it a lot, almost too much. But what about you, John? Any favorite puzzles this year?
I'm trying to think. Like, I was going to say one of the Picross games on the Switch because like they're all really solid Picross. But I think like Tetris Effect does take Tetris more. I haven't had a chance to play it in VR yet because the Game Pass version of PC doesn't support VR quite yet. But like I'm really excited to try the VR version of that because apparently it's mind blowing. So
You see, I was told I think it was last year, Eurogamer gave Tetris Effect Game of the Year
a couple of places
on VR, and they really hyped it up. And then I went and played it, and I put on. To me, there's a barrier to playing VR. Like it's easy to pick up a controller, hit the power button, and stick on Assassin's Creed. But to play VR, there's a little bit of hassle of making sure I call them the dildo controllers, making sure they're charged and you've got your headset on, and then you have to remember where you set your controllers. It's a bit awkward. And to do all that to play Tetris seemed like a bit of hassle to me. Whereas with it just on the Xbox, I just prefer it on a flat screen because you just turn it on, you blast for 15 minutes and you walk away and you go and do whatever else you were doing, So I actually prefer the 2D flat screen Tetris Effect to the VR experience.
We mentioned this one. Like, I think the new multiplayer, like in Tetris Effect Connected, like there's a mode where it's like 3 players versus an AI. And like, I think,
yes, I've played that. Yeah.
Me and a mate of mine playing Tetris online, and I go, "What mode do we play?" And I said, "Do I do a boss battle?" And he's like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "I don't know what it is either. Let's try it out." Like, it does things that I didn't expect. And then we did like, we were playing, and we're going, "Yep, this is a boss battle in Tetris." I would never think of this, but somehow they did.
So moving on to final 2 categories. We've got best story remaining and then our overall game of the year award 2020. Let's start with story. Best story of the year 2020, Wayne.
Didn't we open with best story?
I don't think we did. I think we dove right into Nintendo exclusive.
All right, okay. Best story. It has to be The Last of Us 2. Yeah, and I've already talked about it. It's just
not gonna beat it to death, though.
I'm surprised. I didn't know you enjoyed that game.
Yeah. What about you, John?
See, as someone who's not a really big fan of Naughty Dog storytelling, like this year was a really weird year for storytelling. I had like, I don't think a single game stood out for me this year as like a huge, really good overall story. I had Persona 5 on the list, but again, I think because that is a 1.5, I don't want to give it to. So I'd say probably Ghost of Tsushima would be top for me in story. Again, I don't think that like the overarching story was particularly amazing, but I liked the character's arc and I liked sort of like the progression of it. Like I should say like I like the overarching story, but the moment to moment missions didn't really click that hard. But I like everything they went through in the character moments and his development from the start of the game to the end, and like I thought it was a really, really interesting story.
Yeah, that's a fair pick. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima was my runner-up for best story. I mean, you think about the beginning of that game, the intro, incredible. I mean, even just from like a technical standpoint with graphics, it was great. But gameplay and story-wise, it was a really unique concept. But the ending of that game, as far as story, wow, holy crap! If you remember what I'm talking about there, and I won't spoil it for anybody, but definitely a mind blower. Wayne's like ripping off his headphones. But yeah, the ending to Ghost of Tsushima was just fantastic, and the choice that you have to make between what you do or don't do there is a pretty unique one in video games. I'll say, especially at an ending like that. So
I feel like other games would have ended at the 2/3 mark of that and would have been like, well, that's the cliffhanger ending. But this is like, no, nope, still going. Like, we haven't finished yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And now you get a sequel, motherfucker.
It feels like they took like the DLC sometimes you get at the end, be like, oh, that's what happens after, and like put it on. Like, no, we give you the real ending in the game.
Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. I'm glad they stretched it out the way they did too.
Yeah.
Overall Game of the Year award winner for 2020, the worst modern year for humankind, but a great year for video games. Again, we talked about some great games today. I'm interested to see what you guys got for Game of the Year 2020 overall. I guess we'll kick it over. John, guest of honor, you can go first.
For me, it has to be Risk of Rain 2. Like, I think as someone that like just likes that kind of like jump and lip and I love roguelikes, I think it is like the peak of what I want. I love the Binding of Isaac. I love the Binding of Isaac item synergy, and like when I play a roguelike, I like no one really does it as well as Binding of Isaac until Risk of Rain 2. But I think in terms of like sheer hours played of any game this year, like Risk of Rain 2, like, and it feels weird because most of those hours were before it even hit version 1.0, because 1.0 did come out this year.
Right.
I think it's the best game to come out this year.
Wow, Risk of Rain 2. And it's addicting, isn't it? I mean, roguelikes in general, I find pretty addicting, like one more spin around the sun. But that game in particular, my God.
Because each run takes like, well, it depends what you do. So each run can be anything between 10 minutes or an hour and a half. So
right.
Like, I can finish it like a 45-minute loop of it, and instantly I'm going, no, I want to do another one. You're like, 45 minutes is a long time to invest in one run of something. But it's, I don't think I can ever sit down and go, I'm going to play one run of this game. It always has me coming for at least probably too many.
By the time like you've put like 50 hours into the game in a week.
Yeah, like there's definitely like other games to highlight this year. Like Ghost of Tsushima, obviously, it was a great game. Half-Life Alyx and everything is great. But personally, just when I was looking through the categories, it's like that's the one that I had most fun with this year. So it'll be my personal game of the year.
All right. Risk of Rain 2 for John. Wayne, nomination runner-ups, and then Game of the Year 2020 for you.
Nomination runner-up. I haven't even got that down. I'm trying to think. No. I'm just going to go with it and tell you the winner, and I don't think I even need to say it. You know what's coming. It's The Last of Us 2. It's The Last of Us 2.
Tetris.
In terms of games that put a smile on my face, I mean, Tetris is right up there. I can't stop singing the praises of that game. But yeah, game of the year, it was always going to be The Last of Us 2. Not much more to say on that.
Wow, that's deep. I mean, myself, I'll say runner-up, Ghost of Tsushima, Demon Souls. The only unfortunate factor with Demon Souls is I haven't beat it yet, so I can't make a judgment there and don't want to be that way. I got a pretty strong feeling Cyberpunk 2077 is going to blow some minds, but again, it's just that game's not even out yet, and we're pretty much with a couple weeks left here in 2020. So for me, overall Game of the Year award 2020, definitely, like you said, The Last of Us 2. Just can't beat it for story, gameplay, presentation, characters. I mean, it just hit all the marks that I look for in a game. If I even had to say, like, hey, let's compare games of the last 5 years, maybe the last decade, that's in the running for sure. Mm-hmm. There's no way you have that conversation without throwing Naughty Dog games in there, and particularly The Last of Us 2, which I think shines above and beyond everything else that they've put out. So, again, The Last of Us 2, overall Game of the Year award winner for me. But bonus question here. 2020, a lot of games get updates, years down the road, right? And games are evolving now. When they come out, those sons of bitches ain't finished. They ain't ready. They get updates for months before they're actually done. What's your favorite ongoing game in 2020 that seems to get updates and you're like, oh, hey, I'll come back to this. And hey, wow, this has really made a big improvement. I'll say for me, Days Gone, mega redemption for that game. That's one game I actually bought it at launch on PS4. And then I played it for an hour and I said, this is fucking garbage. Never came back to it. And then I've come back to it now that it's part of that PlayStation Plus collection on PS5. It's got some upgrades as well with it. And they have just gone above and beyond in fixing this game and really delivered what it probably should have been at launch. So here I am over a year later, finally playing that game. It's great. Glad I came back to it and glad they kept putting out content for it and made it right. So what about you guys? Any games in 2020 that really had a good redemption arc to them?
Yeah, definitely for me. Borderlands 3 came out at the tail end of last year, if I remember right. And I was not a fan of Borderlands 3. Gameplay wise, it was fine, but the writing just took an absolute nosedive.
And you're a
Uh,
big Borderlands fan, right? I
oh,
mean,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love Borderlands 1, 2, and the prequel. I mean, the prequel gets some hate, and I thought it was fantastic. Loved it. Borderlands 3 came out. The villains are just annoying, and not annoying in a love to hate them kind of way. Just they're straight up annoying. And I can't stand them. The characters you play as just aren't as fun or as good as the previous Borderlands characters. The worlds that you visit just aren't as interesting. Everything about Borderlands 3 was just a bit flat for me. But the DLC came out. There was 4 DLC packs, and I loved all 4 of them. And it was I can't explain it or understand it. I don't know if it's different writers or if they, subcontracted out the DLC to another party or a different division of Gearbox. But I loved all the DLC. We had a blast with it. I thought the DLC for Borderlands 3 was better than the vanilla core game itself. So to me, that was definitely a redemption arc. In fact, that's what we're going to play tonight. We're gonna have a bit of co-op because we haven't played it on the new consoles yet, and apparently it runs a little bit smoother, better frame rate, better resolution, and all that goodness. So tonight's Borderlands 3. Yeah,
It's
how
so
about that?
interesting you said Borderlands 3.
yeah,
But the way you describe Borderlands 3 is the exact opposite for Borderlands for me. Where
really.
I wasn't a huge fan of Borderlands 1 or 2. Like I played both of
Okay.
them and I thought they were fine. I did not get in the loop with everyone else. And I beat Borderlands 3 3 times in a row.
What?
Like I love Borderlands 3.
What?
Like all my friends started playing it, and the kind of thing where I just jump in, they go, "Can you character?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've been playing it nonstop. I love Borderlands 3. I don't know why. Wasn't a fan of 1 or 2.
Wow.
Then we got the DLC, and we bounced off the DLC so hard. So I don't know. There definitely is something different about the base game and the DLC because
Uh-huh.
we had the exact. Like, we played the DLC, and like the DLC was not clicking with us at all. But the base game, like we played, like I think I've got. That's probably the game I played most this year is Borderlands 3. And I went in, a friend of mine had to convince me to buy it because I was like, I don't think I'll like it. And I
Mhm.
put 3 times as much time as they do in Borderlands 3. I don't know why. I think it's really fun.
What are you
But
playing
yeah,
it on? Just out of curiosity, PC?
oh, PC,
Or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I just played it. I played through the campaign. I skip all the story. I don't think the writing's good at all. But I like the gameplay loop. So I did skip like a lot of the story stuff when I could. But yeah, I just think it's interesting because like the DLC just did not resonate, but the campaign, like I loved it. Well, I loved the
That's
the
bananas.
gameplay. Didn't care for the story at all. But in terms of like a redemption argument, to answer the question, another game I went back to this year that like would be Diablo 3. And like
Wow,
that's
that's
old
a
hat
long
now.
time later. Holy
Yeah,
hell.
it's old hat now because obviously that game had a ton of problems with launch and the updates came. But I'd never actually played like the seasonal stuff, and I didn't have the expansion pack like to do the adventure mode.
Right.
Like this year, like I mean, a lot of friends it could be the co-op aspect of it, but like every time there's a new season, like the first 2 weeks of that season, we've been jumping in, like playing through and getting up our gear sets and everything. And it's a game like I played it at launch, finished the campaign, and I didn't touch it again after. I didn't really do any in-game stuff. The DLC came out, and I went, do you really care? Got the DLC cheap on a sale, played through the extra act in the campaign again, stopped there. But then someone was like, you need to try the adventure mode. And like we played a ton of the adventure mode, and it's a load of fun. Like, and it's something that I just never really. The
Wow.
thought of playing adventure mode never really clicked with. Like, it occurred to me that is a fun way to play. But even just getting the different gear sets, just absolutely breaking a character and just becoming ridiculously powerful. Like it's great.
Interesting to come back to that so many years later. Blizzard does a really good job of keeping their games going so long term. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at World of Warcraft, StarCraft 2. I mean, all these games are pushing decades at this point, and just still going strong. Same with Diablo 3. It's incredible.
I think their seasons last the perfect length too, because we kind of played like the previous season until we got burnt out on it, and then like there was like one day a few weeks ago where we were like, when's the new season start? And we searched, and it literally started the day before. We're like,
Perfect.
oh, they probably got somebody there doing the research, like how long does it take you to bounce back to an addiction?
they're quenching that thirst.
Yeah, they got the world's smartest scientists working in their data department, being like, right, how long does the season be?
That takes care of the, I guess, the formal part of the Game Savers Game of the Year awards. But, gentlemen, any last things here for you before we wrap it up today?
No, all good. All good.
No,
Good chat.
we'll take it home then. So, John, tell us a little bit more about where we can find you outside of the Game Savers family at the moment.
Oh yeah, so I'm on Twitter at John CGXIII, which is very, very memorable. It's John CG13, and 13 is in Roman numerals just to make it awkward. At the minute, like published a few games in the last 6 months with a company called Farfetch Giants. Imagine Leviathan. It's a survival, like it's like we call it a bright survival game, where you kind of walk in the wilderness and try not to freeze to death, and it's a kind of a short narrative-driven game. But I don't work with them anymore. But they're kind of expanding that out, and I think they're planning a bigger release for it in March.
Cool.
But it's worth checking out. Like it's got, thankfully, got really good feedback. That's like the first commercial game that I worked on, so it's pretty cool to get good reception. And then I'm doing other stuff at the minute that I can't announce because it's under NDA, which is fun. Yay!
Hey, all right.
And I also released music with the band Raven Light, and we released an album in June as well. So
What's the name of that band?
Raven Light.
Raven Light. All right.
We actually shot our music video.
Okay.
You can see how it worked. Words Unspoken on YouTube. And you can leave a comment and say hello to Wayne on the video. The one behind the
Wayne
camera.
making a guest appearance. How about that?
So yeah, so it's all on Twitter and everything. So check it out.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody go find John out there. He's out there in the wild. We'll definitely have him back on in the future. And thanks for being on today, John. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It's a good discussion. A bit longer than we expected to go, but I think as soon as you're talking about Game of the Year, it's going to mention a lot of things that you're not expecting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're one of those audience members that has listened this long, I mean, if there's one episode where you got to go long, I mean, this is the one. And we tried to be, generous to every category out there and make sure we didn't leave anything behind, because that's the last thing I would want as a listener going, man, what the hell? I really like fighting games and you can talk about fighting. So just wanted everybody to feel included there. And thanks for listening this entire time. But in the future, if you see a 2-hour-long episode from us, goddamn it, don't be afraid to take breaks. You don't have to sit in your car for 2 hours if we're on. All right, go get a water or something. Go to the bathroom, whatever it may be. But we'll wrap it up. So that takes care of the Game Savers Game of the Year awards for 2020. Again, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We appreciate it. Just to give you a bit of a preview of what we've got coming up again in the future episodes for the rest of December of 2020 before we finally get to 2021. We've got the retro analysis episodes still to be determined. I think you're going to like the games you see there. Call of Duty, the Modern Warfare versus Black Ops Cold War Battle Royale fight to the death episode, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be comparing those two games and maybe save you $70 either way right there, depending what you're looking at. Then we've got the 2021 gaming wish list episode of what we'd hope to see out of 2021, because so many things have been laid up at this point. And we do know what's coming out in 2021 as well, as far as what's already been confirmed. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So be sure to tune in for those. And then outside of that, we'll be sure to see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. If you don't already, find us on Facebook at facebook.com/GameSavers channel. We've also got a YouTube page where you can see our faces if you don't love our voices, which is great. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to save your game.